Hi there, welcome to another blues rhythm guitar lesson. In today's lesson we're continuing in a jazz kind of a vein, looking at some more ways that you can approach playing a jazz type of blues. We're working with the same basic chord progression we looked at in the previous lesson. It starts off more or less like a traditional 12-bar blues does, but then in the last 4 or 5 bars we're throwing in some extra jazz type of chord changes and substitutions. Also going to be using quite a few altered chords in this lesson, again just to heighten that jazz type of feeling. Now before we get stuck into the actual piece, I just want to say a couple of words about altered chords. What is an altered chord, in case you don't already know? And essentially an altered chord is a way of adding extra tension to a 7th chord. Even if you're not a jazz player, you might know this chord, which is of course the Purple Haze chord, or the Hendrix chord as it's sometimes known, although the official name of that chord is a 7th sharp 9 chord, and that is a type of altered chord. And all that we've done there is we've taken an E7 chord and we've added in a sharpened 9th, which from the root of E that would mean adding in a G note, and you can see there's our G note on the top of that chord, and it creates a really tense sounding chord. So that's one common type of altered chord. Equally, you could add in a flattened 9th, and from the E root that would be an F, and that would sound like this. This is an E7 flat 9 chord. A couple of other alterations you could throw in, maybe a sharp 5 would sound like that, or a flattened 5th. That's the B flat note there. So you've really got 4 possible alterations. You've got the flat 5th, sharp 5th, flat 9 and sharp 9. So you can use one of those alterations, or you can combine them to have multiple alterations in a given chord, but they all serve the same basic purpose, which is to increase that feeling of tension in the 7th chord. And the 7th chord is pulling your ear back to the 1 chord in a key. It's that 5-1 movement. So if we're in the key of A, 5-1 is going to be E7 to A, and you can increase that feeling of resolution by adding in those alterations. So I could have E7 sharp 9 pulling back to A, or A7, A13 in this case, or that's a 7 flat 9, and that's really pulling your ear very strongly back to the 1 chord. So we're going to be seeing that in this particular piece, and you can use those alterations not just on the 5 to 1 chord in the key we're in, but you can also have what are known as secondary dominants, where we have a temporary 1 chord in a piece. So whenever you've got that circle of 5ths root movement, up a 4th or down a 5th, you can increase that feeling of tension and resolution by throwing in some alterations. Don't worry too much if that theory stuff just went completely over your head. It took me quite a while before I fully understood all of this stuff, and it does take a while for this to all start making sense, but do play through this piece anyway. I'm sure you will get a lot out of it. So I think it's probably best if we go for a close-up with this particular piece, because some of these chords are a bit unusual and may well be new to you. Before we get started, it might be a good idea if you go to my website and print off a transcription to this particular piece, so you've got the chords in front of you. As I say, there's some quite complex voicings, and it'll make it a bit easier for you to learn them, I think, if you've got them written down in front of you. We'll also make up for any inadequacies there might be in my explanation of them. We're in the key of B flat, and for much of this piece we're going to be playing chord voicings using the top 4 strings of the guitar. Quite a common approach when you're playing jazz rhythm guitar. It means that you stay out the way of the bass player and other instruments playing in the lower register. For our 1 chord, I'm using this B flat 13 voicing. You might remember in a previous lesson we played this 13th chord. It's essentially the same thing, but we're not playing a low B flat root. We're in fact playing a B flat on the first string here. So I'm playing the 6th fret on the 4th string with my first finger, 7th fret on the 3rd string with my 2nd finger, 8th fret on the 2nd string with my little finger, and then playing the 6th fret on the 1st string with my 1st finger. So I'm barring across at the 6th fret with my 1st finger. That is our B flat 13 chord. It's a rootless voicing, or the root is not in the bass of this chord. So I do find it helpful to imagine this note, this B flat at the 6th fret on the 6th string, as being the root. It's kind of an invisible root, and that helps me stay orientated on the fretboard when I'm using these kind of chords. So there's our 1 chord. Then we're going to the 4 chord, but before we go to the 4 chord, we're just going to increase the tension by altering the 1 chord, and we're going to play this, which is a B flat 7 with a sharp 9 and a sharp 5. So I'm playing 6th fret on the 4th string, 7th fret on the 3rd string, 7th fret on the 2nd string. I'm playing both of those notes with my 2nd finger and a little mini bar. And then I've got the sharp and 9th there, which is the 9th fret on the 1st string, playing that with my little finger. So that's our B flat 7, sharp 9, sharp 5. There's our imaginary B flat root there. And that's pulling us very strongly to our 4 chord, which is a chord we've come across before. This is an E flat 9 chord. Only difference is that I'm not going to be playing the E flat root in this case. I'm just going to be playing the top 4 strings of that chord. It's the 5th fret on the 4th string, and then I'm barring the 6th fret on the 1st, 2nd and 3rd strings. That's our 4 chord. Then we're back to the 1 chord, which is the B flat 13, and then just temporarily I'm going to throw in a 5-1 movement. I'm going to go to this chord here, which is an F7 sharp 9 sharp 5, which is like the Hendrix chord, but I'm barring onto the top string as well with my little finger. So I'm playing 8th fret on the 5th string, 7th fret on the 4th string, 8th fret on the 3rd string, and then I'm barring the 9th fret on the 1st and 2nd string. That's an F7 sharp 9 sharp 5, and then that's pulling back to the 1 chord, the B flat 13. So far we've got this. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Let's take us to the end of the first 4 bars of our 12-bar blues. Now we've got the 4 chord again. In fact, before we get to the 4 chord, we could just play our B flat 7 sharp 9 sharp 5 again, just to pull us to the 4 chord, which is the E flat 9 as before. We've got a bar of that. Then I'm throwing in another sort of extra jazz chord change. I'm going to the sharp 4 diminished chord. So I'm playing this for a bar. It's an E diminished chord. I'm playing that 5th fret on the 4th string with the 1st finger. I'm playing the 6th fret on the 3rd string with my 3rd finger, 2nd fret on the 2nd string with, no sorry, 5th fret on the 2nd string with my 2nd finger, and 6th fret on the 1st string with my little finger. There we've got a diminished chord voicing. In this case it's E diminished, a bar of that. Then we're back again to the 1 chord, B flat 13. Then we need to go to our 6th chord. So the 6th chord in the key of B flat is going to be a G7, and I'm going to add in some alterations. So I'm going to play this, which is a G7 sharp 9 sharp 5, the same as the B7 sharp 9 sharp 5, but down at the 3rd fret. So there's our imaginary G root note right there. I'm playing the 3rd fret on the 4th string, the 4th fret on the 2nd and 3rd strings, and the 6th fret on the 1st string. So that's G7, sharp 9, sharp 5. Now we need our 2, 5, 1 in B flat, so I'm going to just play this C minor 7 voicing. Got the root note there, 3rd fret on the 5th string. I'm playing the 3rd fret on the 3rd string with my 2nd finger. Little finger's playing the 4th fret on the 2nd string. 3rd finger is playing the 3rd fret on the 1st string. So that's C minor 7. I'm just muting the 4th string there. Then I'm going to go up to the 5 chord. I'm just going to approach that from a half step below. So I'm going from an E9 up to an F9. That's the same voicing we've used before, but without the root. 7th fret, that's F9, 7th fret on the 4th string, and then I'm bowing at the 8th fret on the 1st, 2nd and 3rd strings. I'm going to add in the alterations and tensions to that F9 chord. So I'm going to play our sharp 9, sharp 5 chord. That's the Hendrix chord with the extra bar. That's F7, sharp 9, sharp 5. That's pulling us home to our B flat 13. Then we need our turnaround, which is 1, 6, 2, 5. So I'm just going to be playing the 1 as before. Then I'm going down to this, which is a G13 flat 9. So I've got playing the 3rd fret on the 4th string with my 1st finger, 4th fret on the 3rd string with my 2nd finger, 5th fret on the 2nd string with my little finger, and 4th fret on the 1st string with my 3rd finger. That's a G13 with a flattened 9th. And then I'm just going to move that down 1 fret at a time for the turnaround. So 1 fret lower, that's actually a C7 with a sharp 9. You're not playing the root there, and then you move it 1 fret lower and you've got an F13 with a flat 9. That's something which is very common and very easy to do when you're playing jazz turnarounds, is just to take the voicing and move it down chromatically. And it's something, utilises something called the flattened 5th substitution, where the roots are moving around the circle of 4ths, but we're using the same kind of shape. So that's the end of the first chorus. Let me just play that through slowly for you and put it all together. I realise this is quite complex. So here we go. We've got the 1 chord altered to the 4 chord, the 1 chord, temporary 5-1, then altered again to the 4 chord, sharp 4 diminished, 1 chord down to the 6, altered. You've got 2-5-1, C minor 7, up to the 5, and then 5 altered, back to the 1, 6, 2, 5. So that's the first chorus. The second chorus is much the same. I'm just throwing in a few different altered chords. So let me just briefly take you through that. I'm going to start the same way. I'm going to throw in an extra 4 diminished there in the second bar, and then it carries on as in the first 12 bars. The 4 chord diminished, 1. Now here, instead of changing down to the 6th chord, I'm going to go up to this voicing here, which is a G7 with a sharp 9. There's the root there. That's the 9th fret on the 4th string, 10th fret on the 3rd string, 11th fret on the 2nd string, and 10th fret on the 1st string. Then we need our 2-5-1, so I'm going to play this. This is a C minor 9. I'm barring the 8th fret on the 2nd, 3rd and 4th strings, and I'm playing the 9th there, the 10th fret on the 1st string. So that's 2, 2, 5, and And this chord here is an F13 flattened ninth, which is the 7th fret on the 4th string, 8th fret on the 3rd string, 7th fret on the 2nd string, and 10th fret on the 1st string. And that's pulling us back home to our 1 chord. And we just need our turnaround, so we've got 1, 6, same as before, that's the G7, sharp 9. I'm going to move that down here to C13 for the 2 chord. Not making it a minor 7th here, I'm just keeping that dominant. And then we want 5-1, I'm going to play the F13 flat 9 as before, back home to B flat 13. Wow, so I hope you've got all of that. I'm sorry it was a bit of a long-winded explanation, but there's really no way around that when you're dealing with these kind of quite complex jazz chords, but I hope it made some kind of sense to you. As I said, I think it's a good idea if you download the transcription from the website. I'm also going to try and put some chord diagrams up there, and I think it makes it a bit easier to understand and learn when you've got this stuff there in front of you. Just before I finish, just want to say a brief word about the rhythm of this kind of piece. You can obviously use my transcription as your starting point. That should give you a few rhythmic ideas. But usually with this style of jazz, it's a bad idea to fall into too predictable a rhythm pattern. You want to keep varying the rhythm. So that's definitely an area where you can experiment and come up with your own kind of approach. That's it for this lesson. I will see you again soon for what I think is going to be the last in this particular series of blues rhythm guitar lessons. Have fun, and I will see you for that very soon. Bye bye.